Welcome everyone. I'm very glad to see you today. And I was looking for this particular webinar because dreams are an important part of my life. And studying psychoanalysis, of course, you cannot avoid studying dreams. You cannot avoid studying unconscious and studying the language of unconscious, studying symbols, what they may mean, or it's the whole world out there. And I was fascinated with it. And I remember even a time in my life when I decided, like recommended by Jung, to put a little diary next to my bed and to writing down my dreams every morning. And I can tell you it does work. It does develop your memory for dreams. And then it was very interesting for me to observe how repetitive my dreams were actually. I found that there were about 20 or 25, I called them cubes to myself. It's like, like puzzles or pieces of puzzle, and they were repetitive. It's the same kind of topics were repeated again and again and again and again. And the main theme basically for me at that time was that I was very tired from work, and all indications were, oh, you have to go and have a rest. And it was like consistent message. And I'm not talking about all other dreams that were trying to kind of knocking into my conscious life and bring important messages. And I think we'll talk about that later. So topic today, official topic, is the languages of the subconscious, interpreting meditation and dream imagery. So here I pass it to Judith, and I very much would like you to contribute, because it's something that we all would like to know and learn more, and kind of from Jungian again terminology, let unconscious become conscious through dreams. It's a very important communication channel to our unconscious, of course.
Well, I want to welcome everyone also, and say that I hope you find this very enjoyable, but also will contribute to the conversation, because that's where it's going to get interesting. And I hope that you've also even brought dreams along for us to interpret. And I thought we would start with dreams, because once you understand how to interpret a dream and the richness of dreams, then it's easy enough to interpret subconscious imagery. So I used to teach a dream interpretation class, and I thought we would just take a look at some of those materials, and hopefully that will bring up some questions, some thoughts, anything you want to contribute. So this one says, what are dreams? This idea, some of which comes from Edgar Cayce, but also it's Jungian as well, that the idea that dreams are communications from the inner self to the waking self, that they're created by you, for you, and use your own unique symbolism. Of course, there has been a great deal of study through the centuries as to the meanings of dreams, and there are some kind of universal symbols, but in the end, it's really about what it means to you, because your subconscious is familiar with your symbols, and that's what it's going to speak in. Dreams are purposeful, with every element meaningful. Dreams speak to all layers of the self. They reveal things to us that we need to address. Okay, and then a little bit of background. Edgar Allan Poe said that all we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. And Edgar Cayce, probably most of you or all of you know that he was a modern American prophet who really worked through a dream trance state. He would put himself in a hypnotic trance that located his consciousness very much in his unconscious mind, so that he never knew what he was saying and had to be told when he awakened. And all of his information came out of this literally unconscious dream state, where he was most open to the field. And so this is the basic underlying supposition, that when we dream, whether we're dreaming in subconscious theta, the place of repository of REM sleep, or whether we are dreaming a dreamless sleep down in the unconscious mind, that we are then the closest to an unimpeded connection with the field. And so this is what Casey did. So I got a lot of my information on dreams from him. He said that nothing of importance happens in life that you don't first preview in a dream. And probably some of you have had some experiences that. I remember one time my husband and I bought a house, and 2 weeks before I had this really vivid dream of myself picking up sticks and branches out of a backyard. And I told him about it when I woke up and said, no, that was a weird dream. I don't see how to really interpret that. And as soon as we got located in the house, the first thing I did was find myself picking up branches in the backyard. And even my husband, who didn't at that time, although he does now believe in dreams, he was pretty astonished because I was caught myself doing exactly the same thing as in that dream. And so Casey said that also, until we set an intention for spiritual growth, our dreams will be a meaningless jumble. And that's also something I've experienced. It was only when I began to meditate that suddenly my dreams sprang into vivid living color and could be interpreted, had a movie-like or stage-like sequence of events that you could remember and write down and make sense of. Before that, they were just a jumble. So definitely a change happened with meditation. And so he says that if we are mindful of our souls, however, we can get guidance on any subject from our dreams. And people have always known this, that the Greeks believed dreams were letters from the gods. If they got sick, they could go into a temple where the gods would show them healing techniques to get well. In the Hebrew Bible, King David began his rise from shepherd to king by interpreting the dreams of royalty. This was true throughout the Bible and in all cultures. And in fact, dream interpreters could write their own tickets because of that. And still today, dream interpreters are hallowed people. The Essenes were called upon to interpret dreams, a major source of revelation. People would travel all throughout ancient Palestine and really a lot of the ancient world, whether that was Greece on, and visit the Essenes at the Dead Sea. And a lot of them went there just for dream interpretation. So they became experts in dream interpretation. They were also experts with all the psychic senses, and these seem to follow, all connected, all tuning in to the same source with the same fluency and flexibility and openness of consciousness to obtain information from the field. And then the Mesopotamians in the Middle Ages introduced the idea of the soul leaving the body to visit other places. I had always wondered where that came from, because we certainly do see that now as a pretty prevalent belief that when you're in the level of deep dreamless sleep and your body goes into this sleep paralysis, then that's when we can leave the body. And people who are experts in out-of-body work, such as the Monroe Institute that we've been working with, they will be the first to tell you that they're diving people down into theta and delta, and that's when people are having out-of-body experiences. So in Aboriginal cultures, children are taught to report their dreams as soon as they can talk. The family deciphers the dream and congratulates the child for reporting it. And then, as Oksana said, dream psychology really began with Sigmund Freud, who used dreams to gain access to the patient's psyche. The symbols were seen as repressed desires and unfulfilled wishes that were usually sexual in nature and often involved one's family. And then Carl Jung, who Oksana referred directly to, a student of Freud's, saw dreams as clues to personal realizations of the self and to a commonly shared unconscious, down in delta, where the frustrations of daily life were thrown aside. He believed that dreams were a practical way for the mind to confront painful experiences from the past and resolve inner conflicts. And what's really nice about that, and then this also relates to our work with the subconscious mind and awakened mind training, is that when you are down in your subconscious mind and confronting or dialoguing with issues that are there, well, this is also the seat of your essential being in theta. And so it's not as painful as it would be in daily life when beta gets involved, and you go into some stress and panic. But instead, there's an illumination that occurs through the presence of the essential being as the issue is worked with. And that makes it a whole lot easier to work with. And I'm sure you all have had this experience. So then that makes dreams a practical way to confront issues. Then there's the idea that dreams are how we connect with a source of deeper and higher consciousness, both within us and beyond, within the soul and the collective unconscious, or the superconscious quantum field. And then Edgar Cayce said that dreams accomplish three things. They solve the problems of daily life, which would be self-understanding, intellectual growth, and spiritual growth. They make us aware of new potentials in our lives, and that they are a spiritual/psychic record of past life recall, premonitions, and foreshadowing, which is future memory. That information can also filter from the subconscious into the sleeping mind, as well as from person to person. Now, Casey said something really interesting in this comment, that dreams access the fourth and fifth dimensions, the realms where thoughts and ideas begin to manifest. That they come from all three areas of the mind, the conscious, subconscious, soul, and superconscious. And they deal with the psychic, the physical, mental, and spiritual lives. And then if it's a soul dream, it could be from your higher self or superconscious. And then I found this quote somewhere, and I really love it. It says, dreams are a visual language, or visual language. Ignoring them and not seeking to understand their message is like living most of your life in a foreign country without once taking a class to understand what is being said around you. Pretty cool, don't you think? And that was from somebody named Silk Gypsy, posted on AOL board. And then a quick overview, the idea that dreams take place in sleep, another state of consciousness. We have this term being unconscious, but since something's actually happening when you're in a subconscious or an unconscious state, we can't really call them not conscious. So that whole term has to be looked at. It says that dreams, their source can be the body, mind, or spirit/soul. Everyone dreams, according to sleep research. The remote viewing research that was done for a period of 30 years by many scientists says that we dream at least 4 times a night in REM sleep, and that our most vivid dreams often happen the hour before we awaken, those are typically the ones that we remember. So the quality of our dreams depends upon the quality of our sleep and our demonstrated desire and willingness to work with our dreams. So my dream life has been terrible for quite some time, and so has my sleep. And finally, my husband said, I think it's just too cold in here at night. And we turned up the air conditioner about 2, sometimes 4 degrees. And now my dreams are back, and I'm not waking up in physical pain in the morning, and the sleep quality is different. So boy, can I agree with that if your body is tortured, if you eat right before you go to sleep, or if you're in a lot of pain, then you're going to end up with dreams that are either scrambled or they're going to be nonsensical and just really a projection of the physical pain that you're in. And so then there's this little tip. Here's how to enliven your dream life. Eat lightly and drink little caffeine before sleep. Declare to yourself several times your ideal and your desire to dream. Ask that your dreams be for your highest good. And if you like, write out a question or problem and look at it before going to sleep. When you wake up, follow the things that we're going to look at in a few moments after we talk for a bit, to capture and record your dreams, then do the work called for by the dream. Actually do the work the same as you would use your insights gained during meditation from your subconscious mind, because then that blazes that pathway between the thinking beta mind and the subconscious essential being. And that's, what, as Oksana says, makes what was unconscious conscious, so that we become completely conscious. Once we demonstrate our willingness to do the dream work that we are inspired by, not only for self-growth, but also to heal karmic debts. I mean, maybe we're having an issue with someone and we actually clean up that relationship through forgiveness or just being kinder to someone, then that is what's much more awakening. And I don't know about you guys, I'm going to ask you in a minute, but I've been doing dream work since I started to meditate way back in the late 1980s. And I find it absolutely fascinating. I've had so much wonderful guidance from dreams, to the point of, telling me that I should contact Edgar Casey's ARE Press to get them to distribute my CDs, and that if I did, that they would ask me to write a book, all of which happened. And this kind of stuff occurs all the time. And if we look a little farther down in this document, I had this crazy dream I'd completely forgotten about, but I put it in this file and just reviewed it. And what I have infallibly found is that dream guidance takes me beyond the limitations of my conscious mind, usually because I don't think I could do something, or I think it's too assuming of me to do a thing, and so I hang back. So dreams have really nudged me forward in life in many, many different ways. And I'm just wondering if we can stop here and hear from each of you. What is your experience with dreams? How have they helped you, if they've helped you? What you want to know as well. Not only about dreams, but if you happen to bring a dream and would be willing to share it, then we can look at helping you unravel it if you haven't been successful in doing so already.
Well, I'd like to jump in if I can.
Please.
So I thought you all might be interested to hear how I awoke to dreams. And that was when I decided I wanted to become a hypnotherapist. So I went to the training program, and my teachers were big on dream interpretation. They incorporated it with their hypnotherapy. And I just had this sudden awakening where I was just all of a sudden remembering dreams clear back to childhood, dreams that I had completely forgotten about. They also introduced me to lucid dreaming, which I'd never heard of, and I started having lucid dreams and did so for the next few years off and on. And then they kind of tapered off. I didn't have the lucid dreams anymore. So in a nutshell, I think this is very much tied in with brainwaves, because you were speaking of, dreams as having to do with consciousness, being more conscious. And I think consciousness is basically just comes down to how much alpha waves you produce. And I think that applies in both wake and sleep. And that's the only way you're going to have a lucid dreams. If you wake up enough to break through the alpha, you got to have the alpha waves to get up to the beta, so you know what's going on. But anyway, my philosophy of dreams has changed a lot over the years since then. And the way I kind of look at them now is, if I remember a dream, it means there's something I need to attend to. And a lot of times it's very easy to figure out what it is. It will just occur to me, oh yeah, that's what that dream is about. But sometimes they're a little upsetting, because a day can go by or two and I still can't figure out, what the symbolism was all about in that dream. And I want to point out, that also provides an alternative interpretation to what Judith was saying, which is that I think you referenced Casey as saying that dreams were always connected with something that was going to happen or something to that effect. And I think the causation could work the other way around too, because if a dream is waking you up to something you need to attend to, then that's obviously going to change the future. So then when that happens in the future, then you're going to see the connection with the dream. Mm-hmm. So there are just some preliminary thoughts on the subject.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you, so was it that when you were studying hypnotherapy that your dreams suddenly started to become clear to you, or was it more a matter of put a journal beside your bed and had the intention?
It was like whenever I went into trance, a lot of times, because we were supposed to do a lot of practicing different techniques and things, and dreams would just spontaneously come to me memories of dreams that I'd had that were quite impressionable at the time. I might have been 8 or 9 years old and I was dreaming about airplanes or whatever. And that whole dream would just came back to me. And I said, wow, I completely forgot. It's kind of like an undiscovered side of myself just suddenly reappeared.
You know, you bring up something really interesting, that a lot of times years ago I was giving talks to these groups, and invariably someone would say, well, I just can't remember that. And I would say, you could if you closed your eyes. And they say, no, that memory's gone. And I'd go, well, where did it go? Did it like just fly out of your head? No, of course it's all still there. We may not have as much access to it, but it's stored in the brain and the field if it happened. And hypnosis is the first to testify to this. It's then reaccessible. And what we would say in terms of brainwaves, I mean, now we bring up another link between dreams and meditation imagery, is that what you did when you went into the trance was go straight down to your theta, not where those dreams were stored, but where your brainwaves were so low in frequency and so slow that then you have access to that field of consciousness, wherever that is, whether it's within the cells or whether it's in a biofield or the brain or all three. Then you just have access. The alpha gives you, that bridge gives you access to what's stored there. This happens a lot with students, you know, and clients who come, and you've probably had this experience yourself, is that they'll say, well, I can't remember what that insight was. And sometimes this happens like in front of a class, you know, where people would be even more, have more anxiety, performance anxiety. But so I'll say, you just close your eyes, and recenter yourself in that state of consciousness, and pop, they get it instantaneously. They go, oh, well, there it is. Well, of course, there it is. There it is. So this doesn't surprise me that you were able to remember all the way back.
Yeah, and just another note on that is that people think, well, dream arc, sounds so hard. But it's like once the theta wave is there, it's simple. It just happens. It can be overpowering. So it's amazing, you know, how much is actually in some sense stored in the brain. It seems so hard to access, but if you get into the right brain waves, it's just there. It's just bang. It's right in front of you.
Astonishing. So anybody else want to comment on dreams that you've had, or meditation imagery, anything you found puzzling or interesting, or experiences, rich experiences that you might have had like Steve's? Konji, please speak up.
So thank you for doing this. I think it's very, very valuable, and I'm very interested in dreams, but I don't seem to understand my dreams as easily as I would. So I'm really intrigued and want to explore this further. And I've had, you know, lots of dreams that, you know, just confuse me, and some really scare me. and, you know, obviously there's also nice dreams, but there is a dream that I had recently that I'd love some feedback on. But if you wanted to, you know, go through the other people first, I'm happy to wait. But yeah, I have a number of dreams that, you know, if we end up having time, you know, get some insight on any of them. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, yeah, let's hear from other people first and then come back straight away to that, because
Okay, thank you.
my dog, it's so much fun to interpret dreams. It's really absolutely fascinating process. So I'm so delighted you brought some. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
James, did you want to say something about dreams or dreaming?
I don't do a great job of dreaming because, unlike the Aboriginal tribes where children were encouraged to tell their dreams, I was encouraged to disregard them and to put them out of my mind as meaningless and almost wrong in a way, which I thought was kind of odd, reflecting back. So I don't do as good with that or with imagery, either in dreams or meditation, as I want to. And I worked for a few years as a pretty successful hypnotherapist. In other words, I was able to help people get into a trance state and do work with them there. But I almost never experienced that myself. And I've started working with a hypnotherapist. So that's on my list to do some work to kind of improve that. But the one thing that's interesting to me is that when I do remember dreams, and I'm actually remembering more now than probably I ever have, what I usually would do is I would wake up and I would be bang, wide awake. Not the hypnagogic state so much, or hypnopompic, I'm not sure which it is. But either way, going to sleep, I would lay down and I'd be gone. Wake up, I'd be up. And so I've been waking up, and then I sort of stay in bed longer, and then maybe I'll drift back into a, more alpha or something like that, and be able to. I try to remember my dreams at that point, and usually I'm having some luck. So that's encouraging. The one interesting thing I'll observe is that there are a few places that I have visited throughout my dream life over many decades. Even there's a kind of a set of apartments that represented a place, or that was near a place where I lived when I was in college. But there was a certain, set of rooms there, and different people would live in those rooms at different times, and some of them would recognize that I belonged there and could walk in and out as I wanted to, and sometimes they almost maybe didn't even notice me or whatever. But so there were some places that over long periods of time I represented, and I'm pretty sure it's a symbolic state or space or something, but it's quite concrete in my dreams. So.
You bring up something really interesting, and I'm not so sure that those sorts of dreams are symbolic. This really gets into the mystical and metaphysical for me to say this, but I, for many years, was dreaming of being in a classroom, and it was on another planet. And it was a school, and I would go back over and over and over again, and it would be lucid dreaming a lot of the time, where I would be exactly aware of where, being in this place, and say, where is this place? And then I would always awaken after those lessons, feeling really wonderful, like I had been to some magical Oz-like place. And through the years of teaching dreams and dream interpretation, I ran across a whole lot of people who had that exact same experience. And it had this like otherworldly, and sometimes there were foreign spacecraft. So I don't know, but that was always a symbolic kind of dream that you mentioned, or that might bleed over into the realm of out-of-body studies or multi-dimensional studies, or dreams that end up being actual studies, because you feel so good when you come back, and you're awake while you're there, and you go in and out of awake, but still, yeah, that's fascinating. Well, this is great to have you here, because in my family we didn't even talk about dreams. Nobody even paid any attention to them whatsoever. But that would have been really harder for me, I can see, as it would be for anyone if someone says, don't pay attention to your dreams. So that's cool.
Just nonsense.
Yeah, and far from it. But you know, still, Time Magazine will come out almost every year with an article quoting many authorities who continue to say it's nonsense.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. I mean, just for a while, I saw it every single year, and you know, because everyone dreams and everyone's curious about it, and there'll be this absolutely eye-catching cover, and the truth about dreams, and then you read the story, and in the end, everyone's saying, it's just a bunch of scrambled stuff. And the latest thing that they started saying was that dreams are your integration of your conscious life experience, which, you know, I've never studied in an interplanetary school with really interesting spacecraft, so that's not true. But yeah, I mean, I think the ancients had it right, and that we're having it right now. So hope this gets really interesting for you as well. And so how about you, Bill? Have you had any dreams or anything about dreams that you want to mention?
Currently, I'm struggling to remember my dreams. I believe I can get guidance from them, but I'm pretty much an insomniac, and when I do sleep, I catch glimpses, but I don't get much, and I don't get them too often. So I'm on my way back. I mean, my parents also never put much faith in dreams and that type of thing, and just downplayed it or told me it was just silly and a waste of time. But I guess my dreaming was a little different from other people in that I was aware at a very young age that the dreams that I had were, well, they were all of my dreams were lucid dreams. I knew I was, and I also knew that I was at least partially the author of them, or the creator of them. So, and then when I got into my 20s, I decided, well, I would start writing my dreams down. But then it was problematic in that I would remember all of my dreams, so it would take several hours to write down what had transpired. So it didn't work out, and I just kind of ignored it all of my adult life. Except once in a while I would pay attention because I felt that there was a message. But now when I need it, when I would like to get the insight, it's a struggle. So that's where I'm at currently.
Yeah. Well, physical discomfort can be interruptive of dreams, that's for sure. I mean, I'm not kidding about this 2 or 4 degrees difference in cold. I mean, not only woke up creaky, but dreams were gone because I was constantly on the verge of awake. I just couldn't drop down because I was freezing. Couldn't drop down deep enough to really get into that theta subconscious REM dream state. So yeah, but you reminded me of something that I've always thought was really interesting, and it's the idea that of the dream maker. So who is the dream maker? Of course, it's the subconscious mind. How can the subconscious mind come up with such fascinating dreams in which every single element is incredibly important, and that when you drill down into the subconscious imagery, you can see how unbelievably, I mean, these dreams can go on and on. And I sometimes have had dreams that go from act 1 to 2 to 3, and every single act has got, it's just like a Oscar-winning movie or a Emmy-winning stage play. I don't know if I have that right. Emmys might be soap operas, but anyway, incredibly complicated. And somewhere recently I read 2 places, but I don't know the source, that the subconscious mind operates 20,000 times faster than the conscious mind, which is kind of amazing because it's lower frequencies, right? And so you would think, because you're down in this really quiet space in your subconscious, that it wouldn't be operating fast. But apparently this new research is coming out and saying that it does, which suddenly makes sense to me how the dream maker, the constructor, the subconscious constructor of the dream, can be so incredibly brilliant, not assembling random memories, but actually assembling a phenomenally detailed and colorful story that so beautifully illustrates everything you need to know in order to have a better life. And that just tickled me no end. And the other thing that you said that gave me a giggle was that I knew a woman in Edgar Cayce's study group one time who took dreams so seriously that she would have up to 16 dreams a night. And she would wake up after every dream and turn to her dream journal and write down everything that was in the dream. And she was like dipping in this with this huge cup constantly into the well. And it was always extremely interesting and important to her. And so what she would do, I said, but how on earth did you manage to train yourself to wake up? She said, well, she would have a dream, and she would be lying on her back, and she would wake up and she would lie on her back and remember every single detail of the dream. And then she would grab her journal and she would write it all down while she was lying on her back. And then the next time when she went to sleep again, she would lie on her side. So she had trained herself to have different positions during sleep that she would maintain when she woke up, and let this dream start to replay piece by piece. Get it all, write it down in that position, and then do it all over again. And, I thought at first that, well, what that really says is that you're not getting enough sleep, because you're not dropping down. But after I encountered brainwave science, awakened mind training, I realized that no, actually, what is claimed and has been claimed for many years is that 1 hour of meditation is equal to 4 hours of sleep. And so if you're in REM sleep, then you're in alpha theta. You have to have the alpha for the imagery. The REM happens in theta. So that is a meditation state. And she said no. She woke up, she was bright and full of information. Now, how she used all that information, I don't know. That would be an awful lot to be able to have to employ in your life. But yeah, there are extremely prodigious dreamers all over the place who are making a life work of this. So, Kavjit, I have in mind that we want to work with your dreams. But may I go back to this thing and let's look at some general principles. And in looking at the principles, then, as we work on this, on your dreams, then we'll kind of like have a context for it. So there are two actually different ways to interpret dreams. One is after you wake up, you can do it in ordinary consciousness, or you can do it in higher consciousness. Working on your dream in ordinary consciousness is what most people do. But when you get stumped, you have to go back into the dream state itself in meditation to be able to understand what happened. It's actually a very simple process to interpret a dream, but of course, remembering the dream, that's really an art. And maybe some of you do it the same way that I do it, and that I was teaching people to do it, and they said worked. And that is just to, if you don't have an alarm clock and you have the blessing of waking yourself up as you can in the morning, and you start to open your eyes, and then you remember, well, you must have had a dream, or maybe a piece of a dream arises into awareness, is to close your eyes again to regain that alpha bridge, which is the bridge down to the subconscious REM dream state. And what will happen if you can stay in your alpha and drop back down into your theta is that a fragment of the dream will rise. And then if you stay, you notice that fragment, yes, there it is. And then another fragment arises, and then another and another, and soon the dream is surging right back into your mind. And then you think, okay, well, now I'm going to get up and write it down. But actually, what you have to do is send it up to beta. Once you have got your mind all around it, and this is the same thing as in meditation, right? now the dream is clear, or now the meditation imagery, you have it in your mind. The moment you open your eyes, well, it can go bye-bye again. So you want to anchor it in beta. Some people have ways to do that where you, in meditation, would put the imagery and the meaning of the imagery in a file and then put it in a file box. But I think it really suffices just to say, okay, I'm sending it up to beta. But the thing is, before you send it up to beta and open your eyes, you have to repeat it with your verbal beta, because that's what grounds the dream. It's the verbal beta, it's repeating it from the beginning to the end. And then once it's repeated, well, it's a simple matter of opening your eyes, because now it's in beta, and writing it down in the dream journal. And what I found is that since the unconscious mind and the writing hand are linked together, I do meditative writing. I'll show you a dream that involves some in a few minutes. Since they're linked together, what happens is that when you start writing down the dream, then other pieces will arise. And so maybe you have to write that in the margin, and then you get to the end of the dream. And very often, by the time you write the whole thing down, you understand what it means. If you keep in mind the main premise of Casey's, that is probably the most useful thing I've seen, and it's that it's going to always relate to your life. Your subconscious is mostly interested in you. Sure, a lot of times people have precognitive dreams about disasters, but Casey said that even those precognitive dreams are in some way linked to you. Or else you wouldn't have them, that there's a resonance between you and the event. And but most dreams, the vast majority of them I find, are really related to my own psyche and my own needs. So once you have it all down, then by all means, set up with a tablet and start to interpret it, if it hasn't already come to you, what the meaning of it is. The first thing, define the theme. Saving the symbolism for last. Now, defining the theme is what I just was talking about, the events. And then a key to writing the events is how you felt. So you don't just say, well, I saw myself jumping off of a bridge, and then I landed in the water. No, you would write, I saw myself jumping off of a bridge, and I felt as light as a bird. I had a wonderful feeling of, see, big difference. Or I found myself jumping off a bridge and I was terrified, because all of the feelings, if you include the feelings in what you're recording, that's where it really starts to come clear as you define the theme. So it's events plus the feelings related to the events. And so this is saying, save the symbolism for last. What's happening to whom? Describe the dream in 2 or 3 sentences. Now, you can't always do that. Some dreams will be extremely long and have many, many different components. And then if it's possible to write them all down, those are the most fun ones to interpret. But even after you write all of the components down, say you end up with a whole written page of information. Well, now what you can do is synthesize it. So let's say I jumped off of a bridge, I found myself in the water, a ship came along and picked me up, and all of my friends were on the ship. We went to a party, we got on a spaceship, and the party was on another star, and as we were in the other star system, some beings came and told us blah, 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 blah. You see what I'm saying? How you get it down into 2 or 3 sentences is you say, after I jumped off a bridge, I found myself with friends on a ship, and we traveled up to a star system. So it's like doing a synopsis, really, of a paper that you do for an English class. instead of writing, what you want to end up with is 2 or 3 sentences that sum the whole thing up. And very often, by the time you have those 2 or 3 sentences, you've got the whole meaning of the dream, and you can see how it relates to your life. See what I mean? So then, once you've got that theme, literally the 2 or 3 sentences, consider how you felt during the dream and upon waking. Were you upset, happy, inspired, frightened, or just as importantly, were you a detached observer, which could signify a soul dream with a powerful message and significance? An example of that, one time I found myself in the middle of what should have been a really traumatic dream, watching something terrible happen to someone. But instead, I was watching it from a viewpoint of being up in the top left and looking down on the room, and I was aware of myself as pure light. And it was a completely lucid dream, and there was a wonderful detachment because I found myself there. I was not down in the dream, and I watched this thing that happened, and that told me that that was a soul dream. That was where, if you want to call it the higher self or the essential being or whatever you want to call it, that's the part of you that is not attached emotionally to events in this physical world. Sometimes when you have those kinds of dreams, boy, those are the big banana dreams. So if you were a detached observer, you could write that down. And then next, you determine whether the dream was literal or metaphorical. Casey said that the source of a dream can be body, mind, or spirit, soul, and the most common influence impelling dreams is mental development. So you want to check and see if your dream is about something going on in your life. For example, if you dreamed of falling in flight, which oddly enough was the thing I just gave the example of, do you feel or sense that the dream reflected your fears about an upcoming flight, airplane flight, literal, or does it refer to a downturn in your spiritual journey, which would be metaphorical? So you want to take into account the other elements of the dream, which should give you clues. So which is it? Is it a literal dream or a metaphorical dream? Sometimes you don't know that until you work with the dream symbols. So beside each symbol on your list, write what these symbols signify or mean to you. So spaceship, what does a spaceship mean to me? Okay, well, just off the top of my head, it means travel to a higher, typically a higher place, something different and new that I don't have access to. So those would be all things that I would write down and notate as I'm working with the dream symbols. Flight being the same thing, being on a ship. So I'd say, okay, well, what is a ship? A ship is a vehicle that's on the water of life. And the next thing I know, this crazy ship example I've given you, this would say, okay, so I would have to sum it up and say, this looks like this is about that I'm not meditating enough, or I feel like I'm jumping off and losing track of my spiritual journey because I'm hanging out on a ship with friends when really I should be rising into higher states of consciousness. You see how that can go? I mean, that's a silly example, but just because I gave you that silly example to start with, just to follow it on through. So the idea is to write what those symbols signify or mean to you, and it can be several things. Now, there is a list of dream symbols. Kevin Tedeschi, Edgar Casey's, actually the president or director of the Association for Research Enlightenment, he wrote a book with some dream symbols, and he gathered the universal meanings from everywhere, and it's actually an excellent book. And then this points out, note that the shocking imagery or the exaggerated activities in the dreams not only are not to be dismissed, but that those bizarre elements are usually the keys to the interpretation. Now, this is where Time magazine ends up writing an article that says, oh, it's just bizarre nonsense. The bizarre element in the dream, that's the one that holds the meaning. And as we look at probably Karmjit's dreams, or some of the examples that I have here for you, you'll see how that means. The bizarre element is the key. And then you want to keep in mind all the characters in your dream, and that they might be aspects of yourself. This is not the case in every dream, but since a majority of dreams are about your body, mind, and spirit, it's only natural for your mind to project on stage any aspects of yourself which need attention. The best way to call attention to these traits is to embody them in people you know. It's interesting to note how many people in our lives reflect our own characteristics and how this has drawn us to these particular people by resonance. In some cases, the appearance of certain people, for instance, the minister of your church, signifies the spiritual part of you rather than a character trait, and that your inner knowing will define which of these is true. So I had somebody I was in a relationship with for some years, and he was an alcoholic, and every time he shows up in one of my dreams, I go, okay, my addictive tendencies. This is about my addictive tendencies. It's not about him. It's about my own addictive tendencies arising again. And for a long time, I was a member of the Unity Church, and I just loved the minister. We were really good friends, and she was a musician and guitarist and a singer. And anytime she showed up in a dream, I was not going to call Jan Mahana on the phone. I was going to say, okay, this is about my spiritual life. So these are nice guides to, first of all, to make a synopsis in 2 or 3 sentences. And then once it's a synopsis, to see if there's a direct correlation to something happening in your life. And that will tell you whether it's literal or metaphorical. And if you still don't see, then to work with the dream symbols and write a list of the meanings of the symbols. And then to keep in mind the whole time that if there are a lot of other people in your dreams, it may well just be about you. And then if that doesn't give you a clear view of the meaning of the dream, well, then you might have to go into a state of higher consciousness to do it. And that typically means meditation to unravel the lessons. It says that you can use all of the psychic senses, intuitive, seeing, hearing, feeling, or knowing, or knowing, or sensing even, to interpret your dreams. And very often, when you get into meditation, at least it's the case for me, and I say, well, what was the meaning of that dream? Pop, it just pops up, and I go, oh, well, I don't know why I didn't see that before. Well, because I wasn't in the state of consciousness that gave birth to the dream, right? But other times I say, what is the meaning of that dream? And this is after I've gone through the ordinary consciousness way that we just looked at. And then I'll actually do a meditative writing, or I'll try to run through the words in the heart center or something like that. And that's what this says, to bring to mind. And in fact, it's exactly what Steve said, to bring to mind 1 or 2 recent dreams, review the dream in your mind's eye, because it's right there in alpha theta. Note your feelings, intuitions, and understandings. Write down the sense of the meanings of the images as you review them. And if you see several possible images, write them all down, write them all down. Then check your psychic senses to see which meaning strikes a chord in you. And you just go deeper and deeper and deeper. And sometimes you just have to say, as I do, what's the meaning of this dream? I cannot get the meaning of this dream. And then I'll get some beautiful meditative writing that totally explains something that I had a super huge block against becoming aware of, and it was keeping me from becoming aware of it. And either through meditative writing or just going over the dream content in your subconscious, you'll feel a click when the right meaning comes up. And that click goes, of course, I get it now. This makes perfect sense. And if you happen to be in a class and somebody says to you, well, I think it means something else, you'll go, no, I know exactly. So then your psychic sense of inner knowing is employed so that nobody can dislodge you from something you know the truth of deep inside yourself. Just doesn't happen. So with that, Karmjit, would you share your dreams? I'm going to write them down as you talk so I can keep a grip on them.
Okay.
And we'll just interpret or have you interpret. We might ask you questions, but you're the interpreter.
Okay.
Ready?
So I'll start with one that I found disturbing, okay? So I won't give any background yet until you guys ask me questions, okay? So in the dream, we were someplace outside, and there was a lot of us, and we were supposed to be meditating. And I had for some reason, my eyes open, and and I saw a snake coming. It was a big black snake, and it was coming towards us, and I got up, and I'm telling people, hey, there's a snake coming, and some people got up, but not everybody did, which surprises me. And it was a vivid snake for me, okay? And my mom was also there. She had actually gone to the meditation with me, so I'm assuming that's why she was there. But so my mom was also there, and now I see she has two snakes around her, or it's around the middle of her body, and they are not black, so they seem to be like beigeish, orangish color, and both of them, and they're like one on top of the other around her. And I'm telling her, that, okay, so, take it off. And my mom's not scared of snakes. I am. So she starts moving her hands down to remove one of them. And there's a log there. And she's going to kind of like sit on it. And I'm like yelling, like, well, if it feels that you're going to hurt it, right, then it's going to hurt you. So don't sit on it.
Stop a second.
Yeah.
Just so I can clip this. You're telling her to throw them off, and she's moving one away. You mean she's grasping?
Yeah. So it
was
like, yeah, so it's around her waist. Okay. So I'm telling her not to throw them off. I'm saying, well, get them off. Okay. So, and so she takes her hands, her two hands, and she is like, as if she's pushing that snake down towards, but her way of trying to get it down is there's a log behind her, a big log, and she is, I guess it looks like she's going to sit on it. It looks like she's going to sit on the snake. Of course, it's like around her waist, and I'm now telling her not to do that, because the snake will feel it's in danger, and will hurt her more. And then I don't know what happens there. And then I know that so then there must be a part of the dream where I forget. And then there's two other snakes on her. And well, they're not fully on her yet. One is like coming around the bottom of her feet. And I'm telling her, Mom, okay, so move this way or don't do this to make sure that the snake doesn't get on her. Okay, so I'm telling her how to be and what to do. And so then I don't know what happens with that. So next thing I remember is I'm in a bed, and I am lying on my back, and I can't, I believe there's a snake, possibly a snake, to the side of me, to the left side of me, and I can't seem to look over. So I'm trying to look over the side of the bed, but it just seems so hard to kind of get over there and actually to be able to look down. I don't want the snake to be there, obviously, but I still have to look, and I have an image of you know, what do you call it? The thing that the air conditioner comes out of, the vent. Yeah. Okay. So before, right, I felt safe that, oh, hey, in a house, a snake won't come in. But now I knew, oh, through vents they can come in. So now I'm really more scared, right, in a dream, and that the snake is possibly right there by my bed.
And then you woke up.
Yeah. Then I woke up.
All right. So this is a wonderful example of those very long dreams that have lots of events in them. So how could you synthesize this dream, make a synopsis so that it's 2 or 3 sentences? What would that look like?
I was supposed to be meditating, and I'm surrounded by snakes, and I feel very afraid of them.
Okay. What about your mother? Don't you need to include her in there somewhere?
Yeah, you know, she is not afraid. She wasn't afraid of the snakes in the dream, and she's not afraid of them in real life. So
could we say, I am supposed to be meditating. My mother and I are surrounded by snakes, and I feel very afraid of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So do you and your mother meditate together?
Yeah, and we had gone to that 10-day silent one that I just came back from together. I mean, she's done that like 7 times. It was just my 2nd time. And she is able to stay in meditation for hours, okay? And I am not. But while I was there at North Fork, I remember the first day during our break, I went out and there was a lake there, and you know, as soon as I got there during this break, I then started remembering, oh, you know, I hope I don't come across a snake, okay? And then on my way back to my room, I pick up this big stick and like, okay, you know, if I ever have to go for a walk, I got to keep this stick. So I actually didn't go for a walk for the rest of the 10 days. Not in this alone place, right? I only walked on the path that was so clear that I'd see a snake from very far. And so we do meditate. We only meditated there together. We don't normally meditate together, but she meditates, you know, around me. Yeah.
So what do snakes mean to you?
I don't know. All I know is that they scare me because, you know, in our garage, for some reason, sometimes, and this happens that I just walk down the stairs to the garage. It's underneath the house. And I just start walking. We've never had a snake there, okay? But I all the time remember it, okay? I all the time remember that, oh, I might see a snake, okay? So I like bring this imagery to myself all the time. And I know that our minds can create things, and I'm so afraid that I'm actually going to create a snake one day because I'm all the time thinking about them. I don't want to do that. And so like a few months ago, or actually like 8-9 months ago, I had gone to, my mom had told me about this snake show that was coming to the library where he lets you pet them and do these things, okay? So I went to kind of get comfortable with snakes. And you know what? He had put a snake on me and I was comfortable. And I made a video of myself, like telling myself, okay, you know, if I can remember this. But a few months later, the fear came back. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But now that you ask me the question, I can tell you that when I was a kid, I did have 2 experiences where one, we were in India, okay, and so you know we lived in a village. So I remember one incident where, okay, one of my brothers was with me, and we ran over to the next door neighbor and told them, I was telling them, hey, there's a snake in our house. There's a snake in our house. Okay, now so many people from the village, right, come to the house, and they're looking all over the house, and they can't find a snake anywhere, okay? But I was convinced that there was a snake in the house. Now, I don't know where all that idea came from, but I can tell you one other experience. When I was like maybe 7, also in India, there was a sticker or something that in the ground, you know, like I guess a sticker, you know, like from wood, where I guess I touched it, and it had the poison of a snake, okay? And, unless it was actually bitten. Well, anyways, my hand had gotten really big, so they had to do these ceremonial things to kind of, you know, make offerings and to get my hand, you know, down and stuff. So I don't know if that means anything.
You know, I don't want to suggest to you what it stands for you. It almost seems like an embodiment of fear.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm definitely afraid of them.
I mean, even when you're a child and
Yeah.
say there's snakes in the house, well, were there any snakes in the house?
Nobody ever found them. There was one time when we lived in Arizona where my brother, I guess, was telling us, oh, hey, he was a baby at the time, and he was telling us, oh, hey, there's a snake under the couch. None of us believed him. I was probably like 12 or something. None of us believed him, but there actually was a snake under the house. And so my uncle had to come and he killed it. So that was the only other incident, you know, of a snake close to us. So it was literally under us, you know, we were sitting on the couch, and it was there. But I had the fear stuff happening before then.
So what's happened here is this wonderful demonstration of how if you start talking about this, you will start to go back into the dream, if you're talking about it with somebody and you're remembering it, then you're back in your subconscious where it happened, right? So then it's easier for you to move into higher consciousness and interpret it from that viewpoint. I mean, I have an opinion as to what the thing's about, and probably everyone here has got an opinion about what this dream is about. But it's better for you to just close your eyes. And then when you were that little girl in your house in the village in India, and you ran screaming out of that house, was there a snake there?
I don't know, and I don't seem to be getting to my subconscious, meaning I'm just here in my beta right now.
So it's a feeling, though. I mean, there is a feeling. So for you to come running out...
I was convinced at the time there was a snake. Yeah.
Right. So it almost doesn't matter whether there was a snake or not. It's that snake is an embodiment of fear for you.
Okay, yeah.
So this comes, the journalist in me is always trying to interpret. And I have to be careful of that. I should turn this over to Oksana. She would know the right questions to ask. Oksana, you want to step in here?
Yeah, I can. I actually may suggest, because I worked with my dreams quite a lot, and I can give an example to Kamjit what she can do to follow up on this dream, right? Because James mentioned in the Aboriginal world, children used to tell their dreams to, the elders or the parents, and they discussed and they tried to find some resolution if the dreams kind of felt unfinished, and that's what it is, right? There is something there, some issue that is looking for resolution, right? So it's unconscious at this stage, but it's clear that it fills your body with fear and is knocking your conscious saying, hey, I need attention, I need to be resolved. And as Jung would say, that would lead to your wholeness, and that will help you to embrace your shadow, or embrace, this kind of second invisible part of you that you need to embrace to become wholesome, to kind of to evolve, and that will lead to your individuation, which he considered kind of the ultimate stage of your, I don't know, evolution, spiritual evolution. So you find your true self, to put it simple, right? To kind of discover your true self. And the solution is quite easy. So when you find something scary in your dream, like when I was little, I had nightmares, and I had a little monster hanging at the top of the curtain in my bedroom. And it's kind of shapeless, something, not shapeless, but like witch-like figure, you know, in classical witch-like hat and black cloak, something like that. And it was scaring me a lot. And then years later, I did a seminar in a group, and we were making, with our hands from like clay, we were making these characters that were scaring us in our dreams. And while making that character, as soon as I made that character, that monster that was sitting on top of my curtain, I realized, wow, but actually that monster was there to protect me. It was lonely, like me, at night in my bed, you know, away from parents, in my bedroom. And like any child, you can understand these fears. It's dark, it's scary, you're alone in your bed, and then you create this monster. And actually the purpose of that was to kind of not be lonely and make friends with me and protect me. And that kind of healed that part. Or in Aboriginal world, they would say, if you meet a monster, instead of running away, offer him or her or whatever, eat a gift, become friends, make friends, turn it, or just see what positive aspects that may have. And or using a kind of psychoanalytical approach, I would say, okay, if this is your worst fear, just kind of keep dreaming, close your eyes, go into meditation, and try to dream further through the fear if you can. If it's too scary, imagine that you're sitting, I don't know, in a glass box, so that snake can't hit you because you're sitting like in the glass. It's like this glass separating you from the snake, and that kind of mentally gives you this barrier. Or you have someone, I don't know, snake man that you can trust, or someone else that you feel safe with that will protect you. Just imagine that figure, someone to protect you, and then dream further. What will happen next? What's next? What the snake will bite? What's the worst that may happen when you encounter a snake? Can you answer this question, Kamjit? Just try to improvise now. What's the worst that will happen when you encounter a snake?
Yeah, I would imagine that it would hurt a lot because I can see sometimes the fangs of a snake, and that it would hurt a lot. And yeah, I'm not necessarily afraid of death, but I don't want to go through the pain of being eaten by a snake and then dying.
So it's maybe fear of pain, and it may lead you like playing further with your associations, you know, how they kind of are all connected, and it just you may kind of now find another association leading, okay, pain. When you say pain, was there any, again, back in childhood experience related to extreme pain, or you saw someone, I mean, anything that may come up to your mind that evolves that, you know, someone dying in pain or whatever, it's just something linked to it in your own story, in your own mind, that is causing that. And of course there could be like not direct relation again to snake, it can be related to anything else. I won't be in Freud here because, you know, Freud like so male symbol in everything, you know, including snake. It's really up to you to see what it evokes in you. So it's something related to pain, apparently, whatever pain. And then keep tracing it further.
Okay. I guess so, and I get this sense, which I hadn't thought of before. It's the fangs of it's the mouth and the fangs of the snake that are the most visible, and what I like. You know, when I go downstairs right into the garage, I will, I'm seeing the fangs, right? I'm seeing the mouth open, and I even know that that's not how snakes really are. You have to present some sort of a danger to the snake, and only then are they going to try to attack you. I know this stuff consciously, but it doesn't matter. I sincerely want these thoughts and images to go away. Pain, you know what, that is what I'm afraid of, but it doesn't seem like I'm afraid of pain in real life, you know what I mean? But I guess maybe somewhere I am.
No, you just need to follow it, really. Instead of, it's like, again, if it's you try to suppress thoughts, and the more you suppress, the more they will knock the door of consciousness, trying to say, hey, we are still there, we still want to be welcomed. It's like my monster. I want to come and be your friend and actually do something good for you. So I can tell you even more. Another very good example, I think. One of Jung's student, not students but followers, Arnold Mindell. He developed his own even process-oriented psychotherapy based on Jungian work, and the idea there is that any symptom, even physical symptom in your body, is also a manifestation of this message from unconscious that is knocking your conscious mind and wants to enter. So, and even the physical symptoms he was seen as something positive, actually, something that is going to enrich you. Okay, to, again, in Jungian words, make you feel wholesome, make you feel healed, make you feel bigger and more kind of actualized. So, there is always a positive, there is always a benefit there, and that's what you have to look for. And as Judith mentioned, everything bizarre, so you'll really kind of become a detective trying to find what's that unusual, kind of ignore all that, conscious things that your usual mind will suggest. Oh, I know snakes. I know this is what they're like. I know this is not. So it means there is something else there. So this is not it. It just presents itself in the form of a snake. For whatever, because it's like there is a big fear attached to it, right? But
Yes.
you can kind of break through and see where it leads to. It's something like, again, in the terminology of Mindell, I really like his work, and people might check his books out. He also tries to awaken people and let them see. Kind of, you have to climb the mountaintop and see what's behind the mountain. But just where you are, you can't see what's behind. And as soon as you climb on mountaintop, it's kind of, you climb onto your high level of consciousness, it gives you more perspective, and you start seeing, oh, that's what it was waiting for me there on the other side. That's what the insight was. That's what the message was. But again, there is something positive out there. And I may give you another example. Maybe it's the best way to kind of see how I interpreted my dreams. They might help you to interpret your dreams. So I had a fear of dogs. And I mean, in my dreams, again, not in real life. I'm hardly afraid of dogs in real life. But in my dream, I often had dreams where it's a dark street late at night. It's very quiet, seems like nobody there, it's like dead silence. And then there's big black dog coming out of somewhere, and it just coming and grabbing, like biting my hand, and I can feel the teeth and pain, it's like, and then years later, it was kind of repetitive dream. Years later, I started seeing magic dreams, which is absolutely crazy. And I realized that dog actually is some dark spirit that is trying to attack me, because in my dream, I represent light. I represent good. And from, I don't know where from, but in that dreams, I kind of use my magical abilities. I kind of, but I can help that spirit, lost spirit, evil spirit, to basically find its way back to light. And I was kind of, go back to light. And I was just standing there kind of trying to hold my light and helping. And yeah, there was like dreams where this dog turned into a crow and just flew away. And it worked like that. So there was a resolution, but it was absolutely unusual, kind of magical. And I'm waking up and thinking, what was that about? I can't really say, but it's kind of recent series of dreams. They were magical. And I thought it's basically a reminder, yes, to hold myself in light and keep my light during like everyday life, stay conscious and remember that everything that comes in with like this, it's not really evil. It's a lost spirit. It's someone's lost, misdirected, and this someone needs love, needs this protection, needs, despite of the appearance, it's someone needs to be loved and embraced. And that's how I basically holding this light, and sending light means love as well. So holding that as my protection. I think in one of my dreams, I even was shouting like, love is my protection, something like that. And it's like, oh, very pathetic. It's conscious mind when I look at it. Oh, that's all very bizarre. But yeah, that's another, I think, interesting example of how dreams work. And if you permit, I can give like a few more examples, because again, I think examples are best to learn from. Oh, before I do that, again, you have to be a detective, look at all unusual things, and you have to focus really on what's the key image or key sensation or this flavor, aftertaste, mood, that you have after the dream, and kind of stick to that and keep unfolding that, kind of going back to it again and going back to it again. And maybe each time you approach it consciously, it will get less scary and you may get a little bit deeper into it. Then I always use even like these books of dreams interpretation, symbols. But I always filtered, if it doesn't resonate with me, I would say, no, this is not for me. This is not resonating. I have another associations attached to this particular word. But say a good example was I was out of work from like Coca-Cola, where I worked in Moscow, and I had a long break. I was studying psychology during that period, but I was thinking, okay, I don't want to go back to corporate world. I don't go back to business world. I want to do more with psychology. I want to find something where I would feel I fit better than business world, because it's too aggressive for my nature. It's not really for me. And in my dreams, I kept looking through my wardrobe and thinking, oh, I need new dresses. I need to try new styles. Or I was finding some unusual, weird shoes. It's like sports shoes, but with high heels. And I never, had anything like that in my life, but it was apparently something sports, which is something more casual than, strict business style. And then with heels, it was my craving for becoming like more feminine, more like finding myself as a woman, because my personal life was equal zero. It was just work, work, work. Where a man, where is me as a woman there? So it was my kind of deep desire to kind of find more relaxed lifestyle, more comfortable probably and better suiting for me, and then finding myself as a woman there. So even just the sports shoes and high heels, oh, that's very weird. How can that be true? So this is another good example. And then repetitive dreams, they always kind of, these are the key messages, knocking your door again and again to be interpreted. And then I got another series of dreams where I had heavy bags. Oh, I have a train, or I have an airplane which is leaving and I'm late and I'm there saying the airport, but where are my bags? Oh, I left my bags at home. And because of these bags, I cannot leave. Or I'm on the airplane and where are my bags? And I'm so worried about these stupid bags. And like my partner, he just, why can't you travel without bags? Just stop carrying this heavy luggage with you. You're in your dreams. I mean, in your dreams, you have like, find your power, just kind of find yourself as a free spirit with boundless, because dreams are the language, it's the language of our soul, really, communication with our soul, without time, without boundaries. It's kind of where you discover your limitations. And I discovered, oh yeah, this is true. In my dreams, I can have all money in the world. It's like, why am I so attached to my bags? So I interpreted that in real life, I can't move on to the next stage in my life, wherever I need to move, and I want to move very much. I have a ticket, it's urgent, but I'm holding on to some past stuff, some heavy luggage that is holding me back, that for some reason I can't let go of. So it's time to let go of. And I had the progress there where in one of my dreams I finally, oh, I don't care. I'll just buy all new things. I have my passport with me, my tickets. Oh, great. I'll buy all the new things in the new place where I'm going. Cool. Here I go. Solved. It was such a relief. You know, it was a breakthrough. And then I had repetitive dreams about school. It was a traumatic experience for me because I didn't like to wake up early. I was a very polite girl, diligent girl. I was afraid to come and not be prepared for a lesson, so for an exam. You know, it's just lots of hard work. We have lots of home tasks in Russia when we study at school. And years later, can you imagine, I graduated, I don't know how many years ago. It was a very long time ago. But I still see dreams that I have to go to school. I wake up, oh, I'm late. I probably should go and hurry up. I may go and get to the second lesson, not the first lesson at school. I'll be late, but I'll get there. So I get back there and I see all my schoolmates, and sometimes I have group mates from the university. So it's kind of all confused and messed up. And I'm sitting there like, what am I doing here? I think I graduated school a long time ago, but why do I have still to be there? And it's that deep sense of obligation, you know, just penetrated every cell of my body. And again, I had these dreams and like, oh, no, you still have to finish another year, or there is still some courses that you have to finish, so you have to go back to school. And a great kind of progress for me was when I finally said, no, I graduated. I'm not going back. I'm done with that. So it's kind of, again, rediscovering my power to say, no, I've grown up. I'm not a little girl, and I don't have to go to school again. Whatever you say, I've got my, you know, kind of diploma. And I moved on. I even done, you know, higher education. I got other diplomas. No way. I don't need to be there. And I don't care if other people are still there. I don't have to go back there.
You know, and I think what you're talking about, Oksana, is really, you put your finger on it. Unfinished business is so much of what dreams are talking to us about. And, you know, Karmjit, you have the archetypal symbol for fear. I mean, going back to the Garden of Eden, right, is the snake. And I'm not 100% sure that it's snakes that you're afraid of, except as a symbol of fears. And I'll bet you that as a little girl that something scared you and it came to your mind as snake. But the key things that you said that really resonated with me, and pardon me if this is interpretation, but we're not going to get any completion here about your dream unless I say it or somebody else does, is that I heard you say that I'm supposed to be meditating, but that was interrupted by snakes. And then I heard you remembering the meditation. So that was when you went right back to your theta, remembering the meditation retreat and how you wanted to go for a walk, but then you got afraid of snakes and didn't go for the walk. So it seems a classic case of the fear represented by the snake is a block. And like Oksana said, it's just wanting you to look at it and say, okay, let's sit down, I'm going to write, or I'll do a meditative writing. And just have a talk with myself about my fears, whether they're associated with pain or not. Although that's a very good possibility because you made that link. Just to sit down and really get really honest with yourself and say, what am I afraid of? Okay, and go below the symbol. What are my fears? Because it is a recurring thing for you in your life from childhood even. Everyone's afraid of snakes, whether they admit it or not. But I think that the classic if it were really snakes that you were afraid of, or if it were really a monster in your dreams, the classic thing is to do what Oksana said and turn around and say, I'm not afraid of you. So that's how you would conquer a fear of a thing. But I think I suspect that the deeper thing is to really look at fear itself.
One thing you might want to consider is that the Ida and Pingala are snakes which represent the flow of energy, especially during meditation. So it may have something to do with that aspect of the meditative process.
Yeah, that occurred to me too. That's a very good possibility.
Well, the night before I had this dream, I had seen a short video of a Kundalini, rising and where the snake is going up. However, and I thought about that. When I watched that, I was like, oh, I wonder if that's why I'm afraid of snakes, is because what if because in that video, the guy was he had this Kundalini rising and he got really sick and stuff like that. But anyways, that one, I guess, has to be prepared for something like that. So, but then that didn't explain to me, well, why would I be afraid for it for so many years? You know what I mean? That was the only part that I couldn't connect to that. So yeah. I don't know. You guys could be on.
Yeah. Going back to childhood, that's a lot. But the most common fear people have, as has been so beautifully stated by Nelson Mandela and then repeated by Marianne Williamson, is that the biggest fear that we have is to not be small anymore, but to be who it is that we really are. Now, I totally murdered that and paraphrased it. It's much more elegant language, but I think, stepping out of our comfort zone is our biggest fear.
It's a fear of our bigger self, nothing else, because you have to let go of your ego. Ego, in this case, represents your idea, your identity as you see, your limitations, your current kind of how you labeled yourself, that's what I am. And then you have to step out of that into a bigger self, really embracing your true self. And it's your ego doesn't want to die, your old self, little self doesn't want to go. And it's always a battle. It's always this.
But now we're getting into the realm of interpreting her dream from her, which is not what we want to do. So we're going to deal with that, Karmjeet. This is going to be, your challenge to really free associate, sit down with pen and paper, really free associate and get to that, because it's really just 2 sentences that you boiled it down to. The main thing is that it's your life, but the real question here is, what does that snake represent? What does it symbolize for me? And what's part of that whole concept, below it, in it? Yeah, and then you'll see it. You're going to see a parallel.
And Judith, I want to make a very important note here, because when we talk about symbols, the idea of symbol is that it's multi-dimensional. It has many facets to it, right? And that's why snake, we literally tend to think of snakes. That's what conscious mind sees things like, right? Straight into snake. But again, the idea of symbol is it has many facets to it. So snake, again, in Freud's, it will stand for phallus. In another, it may stand for Kundalini. It may stand in Garden of Eden for wisdom and tree of knowledge and partaking of that. So it's it has many facets to it. And that's basically the core of interpreting dreams, because it talks in symbols. It talks in these multi-dimensional images. They're not flat. It's not just a snake. And definitely in your case, it's not just a snake, because you try to resolve it, hitting, playing with snakes, doing that. It's not. It's something that represents itself as a snake. One of the facets with a deeper meaning, with a second bottom, if you like. That's what I mean by saying multi-dimensional symbol. And again, in metaphorical sense, that's how you kind of make use of this symbol, so they do not become that abstract, but you try to, when we talk about metaphor, we kind of try to attribute the qualities of some other object to kind of make symbol work for you. So explore that and always remember that, in dreams. That's the language of subconscious. That's the way it speaks. Multi-dimensional words or images that has layers or facets, second bottoms to it.
Yeah, like the whole idea of the snake in the house. Well, it's a snake in the subconscious because in all dream directories and in your own subconscious, the subconscious is represented as a house. So, yeah. Anyone else have dreams that they want to share or share about, to discuss how you solve the dream, or an unsolved dream, an unsolved mystery?
Judith, I can give a few more examples that are quite bright. It won't take long, but I think they're quite illustrative again. I want to go back and talk about, continue that series of kind of self-actualization dreams with school and bags. And the next one was when I found myself once in a car, and I was on a passenger seat, but there was no driver. And the car was going somewhere on the road. And I suddenly realized, oh, no, I have to move into the driver's seat and start driving this car. Because how can I trust it's just going somewhere? It could be, dangerous, and where is it going to take me? And
that's great.
It's
so there's
classic,
a literal.
really. Yeah, it was like very classical example. And it didn't take me long to interpret it as I'm kind of feeling I'm a victim, I'm dragged by someone else, so I'm not in my power. I have to step into my power and take my life into my hands and kind of sit down behind the wheel and drive the car where I want it to go. So it was, again, very bright and good example of how dreams communicate. And
did you have a second example?
I have a couple of more things that I just wanted to mention, that how dreams can be healing as well, because I remember I went on a business trip to South America once, and it was a very long flight, and I was exhausted, and I didn't sleep well. I never sleep well on the airplane. And I had important business meeting straight after, so I had like a couple of hours of rest before that meeting. We arrived, booked into the hotel, and I was in my hotel room, and I drifted into sleep. And I went to some beautiful, island, like paradise. And I met an old friend of mine who was very loving and caring. And I felt so relieved and kind of rested after that sleep. So it was absolutely wonderful. I thought it's kind of bringing what I was missing in the moment. And I had dreams where I was flying and singing. And that's the best example, I think, to give, because when I did a webinar with Andrea on heart rate variability, and when she asked me, Oksana, imagine some good experience where you really feel good, you feel love, and I found myself in my dream where I'm flying and singing. And I told Andrea, it's when this dream feels like my soul is singing. And that's exactly when my heart rate variability was the best. It was like perfectly showing this, not chaotic, this alpine peaks. That's exactly what you want. So after that, it brought me to realization that, dreams can be healing. And this is a good example, that you can see with your own eyes, that it's healing my heart. When you have this perfect, heart rate variability, it's very healthy for your heart. So when I'm having these dreams, apparently I'm restoring my health. So it's one of the things as well. And then clearly we don't need proof that it's our soul talking, because again, in my dreams I found myself sometimes in two different places at once, So as you, Judith said, as soon as you step into your spiritual journey, you start meditating. And in my case, I read a book by Jane Roberts, Seth Speaks. If you never come across, it's basically, I don't know, we may call it channeling from some entity called Seth, recorded by Jane Roberts' husband. Series of books. So in my dream, I found myself simultaneously in like 2 dimensions. So I was walking in a modern city street, and then suddenly I could see the like this modern street being converted into an old street with chariots and some, I don't know, some monks in dark clothes walking as if I'm going back in some, I don't know, 18th century, from modern days into 18th century. And it was the same street. And I was kind of finding myself back in this time and in that time in past. So it was really unusual how kind of my consciousness could split in time. And then I had dreams where I split it in space as well, where I could find myself, because I miss Russia so much being in Australia. I sometimes find myself, I'm in my Moscow apartment and part of my consciousness is in Australia. And I'm like, but how can I be living and working in Moscow when I clearly know it's summer, it's warm, and I don't know, I'm walking on the beach in Brunswick? How can that be true? How can I find myself in 2 places at once? So it clearly shows, you know, on the level of spirit, we are free spirits without time, without space limits, and it can take you anywhere, including like I had conversations with my grandmother who died, but it's always live conversation. It's always like, oh, I'm missing you so much. It's quite lucid, and I'm very conscious in these dreams, and I remember the conversation, and it's very satisfying. So I really loved my grandmother, and apparently I keep seeing her in spirit in my dreams and find it very satisfying, like meeting, you know, someone I loved a lot after a long period, long break. So I'll stop there, and I think I gave plenty of good examples for people to follow up or inspire to dream more and look into our subconscious more for exciting messages and finding all the treasures that it keeps for you. It holds only, you know, our theta, it's not only skeletons in wardrobes, these are also like treasures in the bottom of the sea, you know, like sunken ship with all their gold in there in the bottom of the ocean. So you dive in and you find all the gold there.
Sounds like a dream in itself. So thank you for sharing that, Oksana. I think Steve Jones, you have one that you want to share?
Yeah, this came to mind early in our webinar, and I can't really tell you much about the dream because it's been so long ago, but the essence of it is that whereas most dreams are visual in nature and you remember how things look and what happened and so forth, and this was a dream in which I was engaged in a telephone conversation. And you know, when you're on the phone, you kind of, you're not, you know, so conscious of your surroundings. You're focused on the other person, but you don't really picture the other person on the, so really your consciousness is more absorbed in just the sound of their voice and how you're responding. So in this dream, there weren't any visuals at all. It was just completely auditory. And I thought that was so weird and different. And I think it wasn't too long, because I was studying dream literature at the time, and I ran across mention of auditory dreams. And I said, oh, yeah, that's what I had. So I was just curious to see if anybody had any associations with that, because the only thing I could think of at the time was just, you know, well, this was just an experiment on my part to see, you know, what all kinds of forms dreams could have. So it was during my hypnotherapy training. So I just wondered if anybody had any thoughts on why I might have had such a dream, or, you know, what it might mean.
Of course, what we really want you to do is look at the symbolism for yourself. What do you think it meant?
I think it was kind of like a scientific experiment on my part to see what the brain was capable of when in the dream state, what different kinds of modes it could get into, and I'm not sure that it really had any significance beyond that.
Well, that makes perfect sense to me. You're an explorer. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, there's a famous scientist, some of you may be familiar with, Richard Feynman, and he wrote about his dreams while he was in college, and he had a similar attitude towards dreams. Like when he had a lucid dream, he wanted to do them over and over until he understood, how they worked and what their purpose was and everything like that. And then he said once he'd done that, he stopped having them because he said it was like a waste of energy. He said when you need lucidity in dreams, you have it. When you don't, you don't. And he kind of left it at that. So
wait, when you need to resolve something, you have a dream, and when you don't need to resolve something, you don't?
Well, he was talking about lucid dreams in particular because he hadn't had them before college, and then he just started having them. So he would ask himself questions like, well, I wonder if you can dream it, because he knew he'd be conscious, so he'd ask himself questions like, I wonder if you dream in color or black and white. So he would, when he was asleep and dreaming, he would try these different things to see what, exactly how dreams work. But then he said when he was satisfied his curiosity about dreams and lucid dreams, he just didn't have the lucid dreams anymore because he thought that they consumed more brain energy, took more energy in your brain to be dreaming that way than just a normal sort of unconscious kind of dream. So,
well, that could actually be true. But on the other hand, lucid dreaming has been associated with gamma. So is it taking or is it giving energy ends up being the question.
Right. So I did want to make one comment about Karmjit's dream, because it got me all worked up. I had sweaty palms here, thinking about those snakes. And so I just wanted to say to you, I mean, we don't know one another or anything, but I think if I'd been in your dream, like I would have jumped, when you mentioned snakes, and I would have been going around all those other people and telling, hey, you got to wake up, man. This is important.
Sure. And who knows what it's about? I mean, it could be that she needs to wake somebody else up to something, but she has to actually go through it, which actually makes me want to share something with you. So because it follows a dream, a very short dream, through into the ways that you can do it. So this is one of my dreams, and it's a dream that has a huge message, as Karmjit's dream will have, and as Oksana's had for her. And so just to go through it, I was with Larry Dossey, or Alan Arkin, I couldn't remember which it was when I woke up, who was being interviewed by a news person. This interviewer was abusively skeptical of Dossey's capabilities, or at least his worth as a speaker, and thought his 1:30 p.m. lectures, so there's the bizarre element, at hotels all over the U.S. were cheesy stunts of little meaning. Now, he was getting upset, and although I had to leave right then, I returned as soon as possible. A woman let me off in a parking lot, and I had to walk a good ways to get back to the hotel front. A section of barbed wire curled around my leg and painfully dug in. Alan or Larry cut it away, and I called the hotel's male housekeeper, who was amusedly watching TV, to come over to me. He wasn't the right person I needed to talk to, but I was very aware of wanting to set things straight, to tell this doubter how great Alan or Larry was, that he had saved me and healed me. So what's this about? Well, ordinary consciousness takes us down. Let's look at the cast. Alan or Larry, a spiritual doctor, a healer, both of them are. Through the power of prayer and an emergency, I can easily talk to this healer. I care about him. He's somebody in my dream that's really important. But who is he? Is he himself or is he me? Well, in this case, you probably have to say it's probably going to be that part of me. What's the barbed wire stand for? Well, in trying to do a good deed, I cut myself. The barbed wire stops my movement. The doubter. Who's the doubter? The guy who's trying to criticize Larry Dossey. Well, he's somebody who is antagonistic to the spiritual journey, a disbeliever, somebody who wants to criticize someone else. So what if all these characters are me? Well, if then they are, then the dream means that I doubt my ability to heal, even though I am a person of knowledge and experience. And so why do I have this dream? Well, my soul wants to explain to me that I am a capable. So the part of me who was trying to explain to Larry Dawsey, right, was demonstrating that there is a part of me who wants to tell me that I'm a capable and worthwhile person. And when I hurt myself, even if I stand up and I'm being criticized by someone else, which would cause me the thing that most people are terrified of and which keeps them from moving forward, which is fear of criticism. Even if that happens to me, that I can cure myself easily, I can do it happily, that I have the tools, the courage, and the humor to do it, it's not a problem. If in fact I'm the healer, and I know that there's a part of me, which would be the higher self in this message, who's saying, you have these abilities, you have the abilities that you're trying to defend in someone else. Does this make sense? Yeah? So the message, to believe myself, I have everything needed to do it alone with the help of my spirit, soul, and dreams. So this was kind of a big deal to me, this dream, because there's a part of me that's always self-effacing and trying to say, oh, you're being too presumptive and you need to step back and not take any chances, right? So taking chances is something I really have to have some guidance in order to be able to do, such as forming this Institute for the Awakened Mind. His dreams encouraged me to do it, right? To step beyond myself. So I took this into a meditation. I mentioned to you that I do meditative writing. So I said, anything else? And it said, look into the light in this dream, how the great man knows you and you want to defend him. Soul, higher self, human self, all the same. Here is what makes the dream meaningful. The love and familiarity between you, teacher and student, master and follower, loved one and friend. Let this dream serve you well in your studies, for it gives what is needed for your work, the promise of what can be, always, for others, and the memory of what is for you. To teach this to other people, to remember who we are, who we really are, that we're not just this separate self, but that we have these vast and unlimited resources, and it's from these resources these dreams come. So it says, never alone, never needing assistance, but this. You are full and complete in self, in this merging of the human with its own divine self. It is not a self which we seek to be, but rather who we are at all times. Here is the key to mastery, to know who we are and to be this at all times, so there is no separation from it, but constant awareness. Be this self in this oneness, giving the same respect and servitude to this higher self as to the one, vast, infinite oneness, not in adoration, but in attention to what would be said and done. Let this self guide you at all times, and you will be in the oneness of consciousness, merged with the best that can be and is to be. And so I just wanted to, in that, illustrate that, as Oksana pointed out, this is multidimensional. This was certainly addressing, my own tendency to not step forward. But it was also addressing who is that part of me that won't step forward? Back to what we said a while ago. It's the part that prefers to be small, that doesn't want to take chances, that when it's not meditating and dreaming and paying attention to dreams all the time, can feel separated and not realize that the resources are vast and infinite, and that we came here to draw upon those vast and infinite resources for one purpose and one purpose only, and it's to be all that we can be, and to let the perfection of who we are in our template guide us toward that through dreams, through meditation imagery, through psychic readings we give to others and that we do ourselves, through so many forms of knowledge, through synchronicity and other people and synchronicity and events. I mean, we have so many incoming streams of information, and not to just stop with one and say, oh, well, Karmjit's got a fear. Oh, well, who doesn't? But to say, okay, what does that fear really mean? Does it mean that I need to conquer the fear? Or does it mean that the sender of the dream is also trying to tell me something by giving me the dream in the first place? And who is the sender? So those multi-dimensional questions very much come into play if we're to be serious about dream work. And as Casey said, certainly it's something in our life, it's about us, but we're more than just this life. And so in recognizing that, then we can make more of that connection with the totality of who we are and bring that into waking consciousness. Thank you for letting me share that little dream. I had forgotten about it until I opened up this file today and saw it and went, oh, that's pretty cool.
Can I ask a quick question, Judith? How did you know not to put much attention to the antagonist guy? Because you focus more on, I'm supposed to do this. Like, I have this feeling sometimes I might focus more on, so maybe people aren't going to listen to me. And so maybe that's a message for me. Like, how did you decide that wasn't worth going to?
Well, actually, it was a doubter in me. It was a doubter in me that was doubting the healer in me.
Okay.
And how I hurt myself with that doubt, with the barbed wire. And yet, even though I hurt myself, I can heal myself.
Okay, I understand.
And it's pretty cool when you think about, what if I'm all the characters in the dream? Yeah. What if they're all aspects of me?
That's exactly what Jung said. We think of ourselves as just me, and we kind of cling to the conscious side of things. And we tend not to believe that, even like females, we have male aspect in us, which is projected into other men that we meet in life. And really, Jung, as many others would say, your outer world, your external world, which actually be a mirror of whatever is playing out inside of your mind. So all these aspects of yourself, and this, like, just to name a few, most of people, will recognize them. You'll have inner critic, attacking and doubting and criticizing and sabotaging, and you'll have inner child, someone full of creativity and life and joy and always there, but can be suppressed by this critic or some, dominant parent, very kind of authoritative figure there. But there is always a parent or mother, someone caring and loving and holding adult position inside of you that can always, kind of reach a helping hand to this inner child in case of trouble and need. And it's always good to kind of think of yourself as this kind of the whole theater of characters in there playing out. And just do not remember, if you kind of cling on to helpless inner child, remind yourself that there should be inner mother somewhere or inner parent somewhere, maybe father to defend you or mother to support and nurture you, and call that character out and say, hey, it's time for you to step out and say a few good words, how you love me as a child and how good it is. And of course, all these aspects, they form as we develop through life, and we kind of absorb the external figures, right, or like experience that we had with our own mother, as we have with other people who have criticized us, the teachers, and then kind of it's playing out in our minds. But then as we grow and we realize we have power to we're running the theater. So we have the power to call out and reintegrate, rework the characters which we need currently in life to perform best, to act our best, to move on, to evolve, to grow.
And absolutely. And when we find ourselves stuck, then we can go to that level of higher consciousness that we reach in meditation. And it is a higher, more expanded state of consciousness. That's how Max Cave described it in the very first place. And move into that alpha theta state. It doesn't have to be lucid. It's only lucid if you're wanting to do problem solving, both in dreams and in meditation. You can just sit there in the quiet and let imagery and insights arise. And as they arise, just become aware of them and explore them right then and say, what does this bouncing ball mean? Oh, I noticed that the ball has its nubby on it and it's blue. And gee, this reminds me of a ball I had when I was 9 years old. And oh, I remember that someone deflated that ball and was very cruel to me. Okay, and so you just take it. And so what does this mean that this ball is coming up? What do I need now? What needs to happen so that this buried memory is resolved, is made whole inside me, so that that part of me who's still got this ball memory and this memory of someone being cruel to me, so that that part that's been separated out and just appeared in this meditation can be reintegrated into the whole. And all the answers are right there. I mean, it's literally a wellspring of wisdom in meditation, just as it is for dreams. And whether it comes in imagery or clairaudience or feeling or sensing or knowing, every single image that pops up in a dream or in meditation has got some very serious and important meaning, or else it wouldn't bother, right? I mean, it presents itself for a reason, doesn't it? And when we have trust and faith that it's presenting itself for an important reason, then more comes. Then dreams enliven. Dreams become more colorful. They become richer in substance. And when we awaken from sleep, whether that's the snoring sleep at night, or whether it's the sleep that is our own ignorance of who we are and what we're here to do, then that's when we're really awake. When we honor this ability to call upon infinite source of wisdom and knowledge in the subconscious mind, and trust that alongside all those issues are all of the answers to those issues, and a higher awareness that is made out of love and that loves us, just like in that dream that I just shared with you, the Larry Dawsey, Alan Arkin dream. That was a voice of love that spoke to me. See.
And Judith, one more thing that may be useful, because I think Anna Weiss mentioned that in her book, and I know that the other author that I mentioned, Arnaud Mindel, in his work also suggested that, but he was interpreting symptoms, but it's the same way, it's the same technique. And Steve may be interested to know, when you get stuck on one level, say you're stuck with a snake or whatever other block, you know, it can be visual image of something that you saw. You may decide to switch the channel, the sensory channel, and try to develop and amplify other channels, kind of refocus more on the sensation of fear, or on the sound, or just switch the modality of what you're working with, because if you are stuck on one sensory channel, sometimes other sensory channels may be still open. and it will be easier for you to break through and kind of make it through the mountaintop to see what's on the other side that you can't see.
Sure.
So it's like, as you know, in Anna Weiss's book, she would say, you know, if you're writing describing the music to be written, you draw it, you dance it, you you present it in all possible modalities, so that composer really gets your message, and you know, it's easier to create, it's easier to move on. So that's how I think we reach all the facets as well, you know, of something, of the message that is being presented. Facets, as you know, through our sensory channels: visual, audio, kinesthetic, all the modalities that are available to us. We should explore, and that will open the depth of it.
And the beautiful thing is that it's all right there when you're dreaming. And there's a script writer doing it all for you. How sweet is that? You know, that the work is already being done. You're not even having to seek the messages. The messages are seeking you through all the sensory channels on a living stage. So I think it's time for us to close today. Krumjit, I'm sorry we didn't get to other ones of your dreams, but there's no reason we can't revisit this subject and work with them then. And I just hope that everyone had some pleasure and some insights and thoughts about this. And before we close, we'd just open up this dream stage to each of you for any comments you might want to make in closing.
I'd like to share, you know, this is my first webinar with you guys, first session, and I'm amazed at how good this is. This is so good. Yeah, seriously. I have not made this kind of progress, and I have not learned. Like, I've been in this world for a long time, but this was just so practical, and you guys presented it from many different angles, and seriously, I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and I can't wait for future ones. Yeah, thank you so much for everybody's contribution.
Yeah.
I had a similar comment, which is that I went to a dream group years ago. It was led by a man who had been trained in Jungian dream interpretation. And honestly, you know, people's comments were largely irrelevant, and it really wasn't very helpful to go to that group. And I threw out that little auditory dream, you know, I was kind of fishing to see if I could get any comments. And actually, I had a lot more insight into that dream now. So I just wanted to make the comment that, you know, it depends on the brains who are helping you with the interpretation. I mean, if you've got brains there that meditate deeply and are highly intelligent, that makes a huge difference.
Sweetheart, thank you. Thank you for being here. Anything from you, James?
Yeah, it was really fun to be here. Thank you all very much. I got some good insights. I got some good notes, and maybe next time I'll be able to report what happens. I'm going to try some stuff with this hypnotherapist that I've been doing a bit of work with, and see what happens. And yeah, I got great stuff. It was a good time.
Fabulous. Keep us apprised. We'd love to hear your progress with that dream imagery and that meditation imagery as well.
Thank you.
So, Judith, I think we should say to be continued.
Sounds like
dream work and dream study and staying awake while in everyday life, really waking up for a bigger self.
Yes. Thank you, Oksana, for adding the psychotherapeutic dimension to it. May we meet again, perhaps in our dreams.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everybody, for now.
Bye.
Bye.
I stopped recording, Oksana. Good. Okay. Another 2-hour webinar. It seems like we're going to have less than 2